Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Evelyn, and today we have a very special guest, Maryann Petri, podcast host of Slam the Gavel. Welcome, Maryann. You are my very first guest on the show, and I'm honored to have you.
I'm so honored to be here, and I'm very happy to have you interview me as you were on my podcast a couple months ago.
Yes. So we'll dive into a few questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
What inspired you to start the Slam the Gavel podcast?
Well, I was due to have an interview and it was scheduled, and they backed out. So I thought, well, if they can do it, I can learn how to do this. So it began.
Would you consider it as being hard work? I think the work is fulfilling to me. Is it also fulfilling to you?
It's fulfilling. I like helping other people. As I was a nurse, I feel like I'm helping more now as Slam the Gavel keeps rolling, and I'm on my 5th year with this. So I feel like I'm helping more people now as a podcaster than I ever was as a nurse.
Believe you are, without a doubt.
Yeah,
I
thank
know
you.
that you are. I know that you're helping. Maryann, in what ways are you seeing your channel making a difference in people's lives?
Well, recently I had interviewed a young woman, and because she was speaking out and coming on podcasts and continuing to speak out, her guardian ad litem withdrew from the case. And that's always a good thing, as well as another person that was in Raised by These Wolves Volume 2. Her opposing attorney took the book into court and was showing it to the judge and complaining about her story being in the book. And the judge looked at the book for 4 minutes. Then he handed it back to opposing counsel and said, "Looks like a lot of stories on family court." So that opposing attorney didn't get anywhere with that. Then I had another instance where I interviewed these 2 women from Colorado, and you try to vet people as best you can. How do you vet a sociopath? So I interviewed these 2 women who had 2 kids from the mother. They had taken the kids from the mother. So I was listening to their story. And then that was done and over with. And then I get a call from my friend Debbie Carroll in Colorado about a month and a half later and said that they were taken into custody. These kids were returned to their mother because those 2 women abducted them. And in court, the prosecutor used my podcast. However, in the newspaper, he didn't use the name of my podcast, which was a bummer. But if it helped do some justice there, 2
And
kids
it
got back
did.
home to their mom.
That's great news. That's awesome. You just talked about Raised by These Wolves. That's the segue to this next conversation. How would you summarize the message of Raised by These Wolves?
Raised by These Wolves is a series of volumes 1 through 3, and I wrote them to enlighten the public of what is happening to the future generations of our children through these court systems that are very menacing, like wolves.
Would you like to summarize the message of Raised by These Wolves to the audience?
I want the audience to be aware and the taxpayer to be aware that what's going on in these courtrooms is destroying families, children, parents. The judges are not looking at evidence. In fact, I'm to the point where I believe they refuse to, and the children are handed over to the wrong party.
Why is that? Why do you think that's happening?
That is happening on purpose. This is not a broken system. This system is a well-oiled machine because of Title IV funding. Now, this is of the Social Security Act, and this is the whole backbone of the family court system. People don't understand what Title IV is. The state courts are reimbursed by the federal government for every dollar they collect and enforce in child support. The courts make money from creating and enforcing child support orders and imputing incomes on parents on figures and salaries they've never made before.
And from what I understand, it's a money-making machine. Do they make a lot of money in family court?
Right. I did look up where some of the money goes, at least in Pennsylvania, and some of it goes to fixing the roads or college grants, believe it or not. And it also gets funneled back into the judges' pensions. Yeah.
I'm very excited. Volume 3 of Raised by These Wolves are coming up. And of course, I'm in that volume and I'm honored.
I'm happy to have you on. When I interviewed you, I knew you had to be in there. My focus for Raised by These Wolves was North Carolina, South Carolina. The South. I've got other stories in there from other states, but I wanted to kind of solely focus on these problems within North and South Carolina because the volume 2, that was mainly focused on New York State and what's going on there and other states as well. But I also have several people from Colorado on there in that Raised by These Wolves 3.
That's a brilliant idea that you have, just pinpointing what's happening throughout the United States, basically. How do you find these stories, Maryann?
By interviewing everyone on Slam the Gavel, and these cases are so bad, such as yours, such as Amy Palacios, Natalia Dalton, Jim Schock, Jim Sisko, and these cases, the public needs to be aware of the personality disorders that are running the courtrooms, and there is no justice. The personality disorders
Yes.
are often overlooked by the judges, because sometimes these judges identify with the sociopath. 1 in 15 are sociopaths. What chance does a normal, healthy individual who's trying to defend their family against either an angry ex or CPS, what chance do they have for justice when they're up against sociopaths?
It's a very hard assignment, not to discourage anyone, but you have to pour your life, blood, sweat, and tears into the fight because it's a very difficult fight.
It is. And parents are finding themselves going pro se litigant, which means they represent themselves because they've paid so much money into attorneys
Yes,
that are also working, as you know, with the other side.
that's very possible.
Mhm.
What is the biggest problem in family court today?
The biggest problem, I would have to go back to the Title 4D funding because it all revolves around money. Right, and also Title 4B, which is CPS, Title 4E, which is foster care. All of these are big money makers, and they know it. It's a $1 billion a year business. I don't know how we're going to harness that and reform it.
Now, you and I consider this to be human trafficking. Let's explain to the audience how we came up with that.
Right, with the Title 4D funding, which is the child support enforcement, you are essentially trafficking parents and children with it's just dollars. They're just worth X amount of dollars. This is human trafficking at its finest, and you can traffic parents and children all the time. It's probably the equivalent to or better than dealing drugs. They are able to traffic parents and children through this court system very easily and able to strap them with imputed incomes that they can't afford, and they put them into jails, juvenile detention centers, which Raised by These Wolves Volume 3 also focuses on as well.
So went to jail. In my case, I almost went to jail about child support. An amount of money I wasn't even aware of what I was supposed to be paying. And I had to go back to a hearing. I almost got locked up.
Well, I did.
How was it your experience of going to jail for the civil action with the issue of child support?
It was a case that should never have happened to begin with, based on false accusations built up and just traveled through the system. And I could not pay child support because they cost me my career as a registered nurse. Somehow the child support judge refused to acknowledge this. We almost thought that she had a vendetta on me. It really was getting to the point where we were wondering, here's a sociopath focusing just on me every other week with child support contempt hearings, one right after another. Then she wanted me to go to jail, but it's really prison. It says prison on the outside of the building. But
Oh,
she wanted me in there for 2 months. I only made it a week. I really wanted to stand my ground and not feed her, this wolf, any money. So I called my elderly father for $2,000. She wanted a $1,000 purge amount, and he paid it because I was very sick in there, and I was glad to get out. I'm very happy he could help me. Right.
Marianne, what happened to you when you were incarcerated for the child support?
Well, they would not give me my prescribed medications, which is a human rights violation. Again, the taxpayer doesn't know that. And I was also experiencing chest pain. And I wanted to go to the ER, and the prison guard said, "We don't do that here." And
Mm.
so 5 months later, yes, I had a major heart attack, which indeed scared the judge, but she got
I
nastier.
I can attest to that because during my case, I developed an autoimmune disease. I developed Graves' disease, and I had to go to the doctor, an endocrinologist, for over 2 years to
That's
try to
terrible.
get my health back in order because of stress, the stress of the
Right.
family court case.
It is. People don't realize this. People think, "Well, you can just walk away." People don't understand how stressful this is. It's literally.
Society
Go ahead.
Society doesn't understand. I believe that so many people have gotten so used to taking advantage of people. People just don't want to speak out, but everybody is not like that. Everybody is
I
not like that.
Right. I always speak out.
So do I.
In fact, this weekend, I was at my husband's cousin's birthday party, and some older fellow walked up to us and said, "Well, how are the kids? Where are the kids?" And my husband said, "They no longer talk to us anymore." And I went up to I said, "My ex-husband and his wife, who enjoys her job in the courthouse, turned the kids against us to hate us." He goes, "Oh," then he understood more than what my husband was telling him. I always try to go just a little bit deeper so people get what really happened. I'm gonna speak out on it because 'cause I'm not gonna sweep it under the rug,
It's
ever.
good to be transparent.
Mhm.
Marianne, what's one piece of advice you give to parents entering the system for the very first time, the family court system?
Well, I always encourage parents, if they could mediate, that would be great. But if you're up against a personality disorder, I recommend, and I can't give legal advice because I'm not a lawyer and there's no such thing as good legal advice, but
Mhm.
I would definitely find an attorney that works outside of the city who's not playing in the same sandbox as all these other attorneys that socialize in the city.
That's great advice. It seems to be connected to one
They
another.
are, they are. In fact, I saw during my case, they were kinda steering us towards getting a guardian ad litem, which is an attorney that represents the kids, allegedly. So, what I did was I figured out who all the guardian ad litems were in this city, and I went to see all of them, and I risked paying consultation fees, which scared me because I had no money, and I didn't want my husband paying for it, my current husband. So I went in, and the one had the highest consult fee, and I just went in there and I just carried on and babbled, and I just well, the whole case was convoluted anyway. And then she just put her hand up and said, "Stop, stop. I'm not gonna take your case. I can't. It's too much. I'm not even gonna charge you." I said, "Well, thank you. I appreciate you listening." And I just got up and left, and I kinda just smiled all the way to the car because now it would be a conflict of interest to put her on the case because she and I already talked.
Hey, that's brilliant. That was a brilliant idea, Marianne.
Know your enemies. I hate to say it, but, from Sun Tzu, Art of War, know your enemies.
I think
I hate that saying,
the
but it's
people,
true.
in my opinion, the people in the court system, when they see dollar signs, when they get your financial report, they become your enemy right then.
Right.
Because, in my opinion, they want your money and they care nothing about your family. They don't
No.
care.
And when the case is rigged, such as mine was, they never asked my ex for his financials. It was always me. And then the opposing attorney wanted to know my current husband's financials, and I shut him down and I said, "He's not part of the equation."
They
So
wanted access to more money,
oh, right, right.
maybe.
Yeah, in fact, they were really digging, and I thought, "Man, let's get my name off the mortgage." So, my husband and I did a quitclaim deed, which means I signed off. I said I was in poor health, and this was prior to my heart attack, but yeah, I was in poor health. So, then my husband's name was only on the mortgage, so they couldn't touch that either. But they found out about that about 4 months later, and they were hopping mad. But it's like, "You had your chance. Now you can't put a lien on the home. Now
They
you just have to
dig
deal with me."
dig into your assets now. That's the first thing they do. From my
They didn't
experience going in court as a pro se litigant, they
Mhm.
want to know your financial stance.
I think these ones that I was dealing with, the opposing attorney wasn't so with it. He didn't jump on that like he should have, like a year prior or 2 years prior. They weren't figuring it out quick enough.
Maybe they had to go and talk to somebody to maybe get in the game better. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
Maryann, you have so many people that are saying the same things that we're saying, and you have proof.
Throughout this whole podcast of Slam the Gavel that has evolved into these Raised by These Wolves series is that parents are telling me the same story. It's only in a different city and a different state. What happened to me and you, it's different, but it really is the same story everybody else has. The case is rigged. The opposing attorney knows the judge. They all work together in the DA's department. Everybody knows everybody in the city. They all party together. They all drink at the club together. It's all collusion. And especially when family is involved, as in my case with the ex's wife who enjoys her job in the courthouse, then you've got this unholy alliance, which is a legal term I just learned last week, is when family gets involved in criminal court. I guess they call it an unholy alliance. And that's what I was up against. And that's just horrible. And I know other people that are going through that as well. Another gentleman's case is in South Carolina, and I'd been covering his case. Very tragic what parents and their kids are going through.
It really is. What change or reform would have the biggest impact right now on family court?
I don't know if we can reform corruption.
I don't
Something
think.
has to be done. Right. I mean, something has to be done.
I
I
think
know,
accountability.
but these judges are holding themselves accountable, and then when you go to report a judge, then they cover for each other, or attorneys, they all cover for each other. It's like, what do we do? I have had success reporting attorneys and reporting a judge. That made a difference. And I always tell parents that when you're complaining about the attorney, and if you get that PAMB letter back, call them up and see what more information they may need. That happened to me. I called and I said, there's more to this. And the attorney that I was talking to said, "Can you give us more detailed information?" So when I did that, a couple weeks later, that attorney was being investigated. And yes, he got in trouble. So a lot of parents say, well, complaining doesn't help. Oh, yes, it does. Because when it came to the judge, it could be the 114th complaint that gets that judge off the bench. And I highly recommend complaining.
Complaint on one of my attorneys and one of my former attorneys. They had a track record of just doing hideous things. It took a lot,
Mhm.
but their license did get suspended because they violated multiple people. And I'm not sure if they're practicing again or not, but I don't see how the law license was reinstated. I mean, they did hideous things to people.
Oh, there are good attorneys out there. The
There
last one
are.
that I had, she did save my life, but again, she was not working in the city. I got her outside and she did not mind speaking her mind and not being afraid of a judge. And I think that's really important, very important to get an attorney that does not work in that realm.
And I would say too, All the judges are not bad because the last judge that I went before could have done a lot of damage, but they did not.
Mhm,
And I kinda think they had empathy for me, but they were not in the beginning of the case.
mhm,
What the public needs to know is you go before different judges. Judges are not always assigned at the
mhm,
same during the same time and for the same cases in South Carolina. They go on a
mhm.
rotational basis. And so happened this last judge that I went before, I think that they had empathy for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that that happened, and that's a success story that they were rotating the judges. I think rotating these judges and getting them out of areas where they get burned out. The child support judge I had was in family court for 23 years, which leads me to believe one of two things. Either she just was not a successful judge, she could not move up, or they were keeping her there as punishment for something. And then she was probably taking that out on the public, on good mothers and fathers that couldn't pay child support for one reason or another. And I think I'd like to make it clear that just because a parent is not able to pay child support doesn't mean they're a deadbeat. Usually someone has cost them their job. That's generally what happens when you enter family court and you are asking about reform, is that they've got to stop false allegations that destroy the case right then and there.
I think people should be prosecuted that come into any court of law with false allegations. And that includes the guardian ad litems, the judges, opposing attorneys, clerks, all of the gatekeepers in family
Right.
court. They need to be prosecuted, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. I know someone was working on some type of legislation with false allegations. I've interviewed Rayella Penta and Ulysses Butch Slaughter. Those two are in Raised by These Wolves Volume 3 with their stories of false allegations. Something has to be done. The stories I've heard where once the accuser admits none of that happened, I lied, there's no repercussions.
Had someone involved in my case that was actually stalking me. And they got on to the witness stand because I want to be clear and transparent. I am that person. I made the mistake of having an affair because of domestic violence. I made that mistake. But my stalker got onto the witness stand and admitted that they stalked me and they harassed me openly in family court, and they were still allowed to testify against me. Now,
It's terrible.
do you think that any court was going to get honesty from that person if
Mm,
they were a stalker and someone that harasses people? They
right.
admitted it in open family court.
And the judge doesn't give them any consequences. There's no
None.
consequences for these people.
They were welcomed on the witness stand. They just wanted to hear what they had to say and believed everything that they said.
Mhm. And they are believed. I really think that this now is also the new Salem witch trials, where the false allegations roll out of somebody's mouth, and whoever calls out the first lie allegation wins. They're gonna win that case. It's already done. And to warn parents that this can happen. And what I don't like to hear is when people tell parents, "Well, just walk out of there. Just you don't have to go
You
back into family
cannot
court."
walk out of family
You
court.
can't.
You will go to jail.
You will. You will.
You
Yeah,
can't walk out of that court.
right, or they'll send US Marshals to bring you in
Yes,
there.
yes.
People
So
don't get it.
hopefully they will get it because of shows like this and Slam the Gavel podcast. Hopefully the public will get the correct information about what's really happening. So, Maryann, what keeps you motivated to continue this advocacy work?
When I talk to parents on the phone, I hear what's going on. They send me evidence of what's going on, and they wanna come on the podcast. I feel obligated to get them on there so they can have their justice, because they're not going to get it in a courtroom. Parents say the press won't cover their story,
They won't.
and so they come here, and here I am, and I interview them, and this is how it's happening, and things are turning around in their cases, or in some cases, the judge may put them on a gag order. It just they also I do tell them they have to be aware these are things that the judge could do. They could get very mad at you, or it could scare them that they're getting eyeballs on them, but again, gag orders are unconstitutional. This is a constitutional republic, and these judges aren't following the Constitution.
I am so glad and I'm so grateful for the Slam the Gavel podcast
Oh,
because you
thank you.
invited me twice. I was on your platform twice and I watch your podcast from time to time. Some of the stories are sickening.
Mhm.
I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
they are real. They're very
Yeah, they
real.
and I w oh, g I wish everything had a happy ending. You know, some of them do. I had a couple on, and they had their 3 kids taken away from CPS. The mother got them back within a month because she kept calling the caseworker saying, "Okay, I did this. How are the kids? When do I get to see my kids?" And she just kept at them every day, and she got her kids back within a month. It's, like, unheard of.
That
It
is
was, like,
awesome.
within a very short period of time.
That's awesome.
So the public, if I can say this in English, the public needs to know that there are some success stories, but this is not a common thing.
So being an advocate, I just feel like I was born to do this. How do you feel? I mean, I this is like my second life and
Mhm.
I'm honored to do this type of work. How do you feel about that?
I feel the same way. Was meant to happen, and I can help more people this way as well as I did when I was a nurse. Now that I'm helping more people than I was ever handed to as a nurse, it's more fulfilling to me to listen to these people. They get their story out. They're getting their story out to the court of public opinion with people listening to these podcasts. In fact, I had a mom contact me because I had interviewed Mark Fishman, and he has a dreadful case out in New York State where they're ignoring his ADA rights. So he was talking about the ADA rights and the ADA laws that he was going by, and she didn't know all this. So she contacted me and said, "Oh, I'm glad you had him on because I didn't know about the ADA and this and that, and now I can apply this in my case." So the connecting of people to each other, I'm also helping with as well.
Well, Marianne, I'm planning to do this for the rest of my days that I have left. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Mhm,
Even
mhm.
though something bad happened to me, I feel like good things are coming from that experience.
I've had like, even last week, I had and because it's in Raised by These Wolves Volume 3 that I took my pain and put it into a purpose, and it was just odd hearing her say that to me when it's in the book. It's just it's what we have to do to help others. We're put on this earth to make the world a better place, not
I believe
destroy
that.
others or children.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So, Marianne, what's next for you? Books, podcast expansions, or new project?
Well, I'm still working on I had a trailer done called The Mailbox that was done in April of '24.
Oh,
I
wow.
am looking to get that into a docuseries of not just my story, but perhaps others' stories, and expanding on that, I am looking to find a producer that I can work with to help make that happen. So that is my one big project, and then the other one is doing some children's books.
Right. Well, hopefully, I will be working on a documentary soon. It's been 15 years in the making, a long process.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where things will go from there, but I hope and pray that it'll make a difference to somebody.
Oh, it will. It will. People like watching documentaries, and they learn from them. Go for it.
Marianne, I would like to say thank you. I'm just so honored to have you as my very first guest.
Well, I'm glad to be on and to think that you were a guest of mine, and now you're interviewing me. I appreciate it.
You helped motivate me. You really did.
Good.
You did. I thank you.
I thank you too, Evelyn. Dr. Evelyn, thank you.